everyone, my name is Max, the Technical Support Associate at Dubility, the makers of SurveyCTO. We are now in the year 2021, and in this fresh and exciting new year, it's a great time to try something new like SurveyCTO. In this webinar, we're going to do a brief overview of the features of SurveyCTO. We will not go into deep detail on what SurveyCTO can do, but by the end of this webinar, you will know what SurveyCTO is capable of and how to get started. Feel free to let us know if you have questions about anything we've discussed. If you would like to learn more about a certain feature, write down your question and ask it at the end so we can discuss it more. Also, if you have technical issues, please post them in the Zoom chat just to be sure. There will be 3 parts to this webinar. First, we will do an overview of the features of SurveyCTO, which will take up most of our time. We will then review how to design forms, how to collect data, how to monitor your data, and how to export your data using SurveyCTO. We will then review the available methods of data collection, including face-to-face interviews, computer-assisted telephone interviewing, or CATI, and self-enumeration using web forms. Finally, we will quickly go over how you can get started using SurveyCTO for yourself. We will start with an overview of the features of SurveyCTO. The core of SurveyCTO is the Server Console, which is the website where you will control and monitor your forms. Let's take a quick look. To access your Server Console, open any web browser like Chrome or Firefox and go to your server's name .surveycto.com. For example, the name of this server is Presentation. So to access the Server Console, I went to presentation.surveycto.com. Once you log in, there will be 5 main tabs. The Design tab is where you will create and manage your forms. Collect is where you manage how data will be collected. Monitor is where you will set up checks and other monitoring tools on the data you have collected. Export is where you can download collected data. And Configure is where you can manage users, user roles, and other general server settings. In this presentation, most of our time will be spent reviewing the Design tab, but we'll also learn how to collect, monitor, and export your data. Let's go over how to design forms in SurveyCTO. If you have no experience with SurveyCTO or related platforms, we recommend starting with the Online Form Designer. The Online Form Designer is easy to use, makes it easy to see each field's properties, and it contains tools to easily create the field's validation and skip logic. Let's take a look at how it works. Here, I have already added a single field. This is a text field, meaning it takes a simple text response. It is called name, so I know it is used for collecting a name. In this case, the respondent's name. I can see the field's question or label is, what is your name? Let's add a new field. I will quickly show you how to add a new field, but at the end of this webinar, I will share resources you can use so you can learn how to use the Online Form Designer. Click one of the plus buttons here. We will remain on this tab to add a visible field. Here, I will enter the field's label, which will be visible to the enumerator collecting the data. Someone asked if I can share the slides later. Just by the way, this webinar will be posted in a week or 2, so you can rewatch it as much as you want. Here, we will enter the field's label, which will be visible to the enumerator collecting the data. I want to know the respondent's age, so I will enter, what is your age? I want the response to be a whole number, so for the field type, I'm going to click integer. Now that I have the field's label and type ready, I click Configure. This is the field editor. Here, I can change the various field properties, which we will discuss soon. For now, I just want a very simple field, and all that is left is add the field name, which will be this field's unique identifier. I will call it age. My field is all set, so I will click Save Now. There we go. The new field age has been added with the label, what is your age? I can save my progress using the bar up here. I will save and deploy this form so enumerators will be able to fill it out. There is no limit to the number of fields you can add. I have seen forms with literally thousands of fields, though most forms only have a few hundred or so. Of course, this is all completely up to you, and you can have a form with fewer than a dozen fields if that works best for you. Another way to create a form is to use the form definition spreadsheet. With these, you create a form in a spreadsheet application such as Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets. This method has more of a learning curve than the online form designer, but it can be a lot faster and it is easier to check each field's properties. As I mentioned before, if you are a beginner, it is good to start with the online form designer. Then, as you get more comfortable, you can start using a spreadsheet to create longer, more complex forms. You can use Google Sheets, Microsoft Excel, or whatever spreadsheet application works best for you. There are dozens of different field types. However, 7 of them are by far the most popular. Most of them are quite straightforward. Text fields capture text responses, such as names, letters, or whatever else you can type using the keyboard. Integer fields capture numbers that don't use the decimal point, such as 12. Decimal fields capture all real numbers, such as 6.2. Next is the Select One field. Here, you set up a list of choices, and the numerator selects one of those choices. Similarly, we have the Select Multiple field. Just like the Select One field, it provides a choice list, but the enumerator can select multiple choices, not just one. This is a Note field. It does not take any response, but it can show us information about the field. Finally, we have the Calculate type field. This is what we call a hidden field since it does not appear to the enumerator, but I have added a note type field here so we can see details about it. This calculate field has a formula or calculation that adds the values of the integer and decimal fields we saw earlier. When we had left those fields, the integer field had a value of 12 and the decimal field had a value of 6.2, so the sum is 18.2. This is of course a very simple calculation, but they can get infinitely complex. We also provide several dozen functions you can use to enhance your calculations, such as an if function for conditional logic, the pull data function to retrieve data from a preloaded set of data, and many, many more. There are 4 basic field properties. We went over the type property in the last slide, which defines the field as a text field, integer field, or something else. The label is the main visible part of the field. It usually states the question the enumerator should ask or what kind of data is needed for that field. Here, the label is, what municipality are you in? The name is used to identify the field. The enumerator cannot see this, but the field is called location. So when the data is exported, the field's value will be in the location column of the data. Finally, the hint is an optional property that provides more details about the field. Understandably, not everyone will know what a municipality is, so not everyone will know that municipality is essentially a generic word for a city or town. So below the label, I have a hint that says a municipality is a city or town. There are lots of other field properties you can use, but let's go over the 5 most common. First, you can set up skip logic using relevance, so only certain fields appear under certain circumstances. The field here asks the respondent's biological sex. If I select female and go to the next page, it then asks if the respondent has been pregnant in the last year. However, if I go back and select male instead, it does not ask that, since that field is not relevant. Relevance expressions can help reduce the time spent administering the survey and create less work for the enumerators. Since they don't have to think about which fields they need to complete, enumerators do not have to put as much mental effort into the form, which will improve data quality. Next, it is important to set up validations for your field to make sure the data entered makes sense, known as constraints. As of this webinar in February 2021, the oldest human ever was 122 years old, so it makes sense to add a constraint to say the response has to be between 0 and 125. If I enter a negative number and try to move forward, I get a warning message saying the age is invalid. If I enter a number that is too high, such as 130, I get that message again. I cannot move forward until I enter a valid age. This can help ensure high-quality data by preventing mistakes. Let's say an enumerator is entering the respondent's age of 22. If they accidentally enter 222, they will get a warning message and they cannot move forward until they fix the response. This field is also required. If this field has no response and I try to move forward, the form will not let me do so until it is given a response. Making fields required can help ensure enumerators complete all of the fields they are supposed to, which also increases data quality. For now, I will enter 100, which we will discuss more later. You can also add choice filters to your form to hide certain choices from a choice list. This field asks which crops the respondent grows. If I select all valid crops and go to the next page, it asks which crop I grow the most. But if I go back and only select apples and carrots, when I go forward, it hides bananas and dates, only showing the crops I had selected, apples and carrots. When selecting the crop growing the most, the enumerator should only pick from the crops the respondent said they actually grew. Because of that, I have set up a choice filter so it only shows crops that were selected in the last field. This helps improve data quality since it prevents enumerators from picking an invalid choice, and it also makes the survey even smoother since there are fewer choices for the enumerator, so it is easier to find the choice they need. Finally, let's go over repeated fields. In SurveyCTO, you can complete the same group of fields multiple times, saving each response. For example, what if you are running a household questionnaire where each household has a different number of household members? With SurveyCTO, that's easy. Here, we have an integer field that asks about how many household members there are. I have set up a repeat group that will repeat based on the number entered here. For example, if I enter 3, the repeat group will repeat 3 times. This repeat group has just one visible field, which asks the name of the household member, but we could also add other fields, asking their age, sex, marital status, and whatever else you would like to ask. Finally, for form design, let's quickly talk about field plugins. Field plugins are a way to extend the capabilities of your fields by changing their appearance, behavior, and functionality. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. Here, this field is asking the respondent their height, but there are also buttons in case the respondent either does not know their height or refuses to answer. That way, the enumerator can just select those buttons when needed. This field plugin is a bit more fancy. It is a timed list of statements where the respondent must answer true or false. The timer automatically starts. I can scroll down to answer the other statements, and the timer and column headers always stay at the top. This particular field plugin has lots of customization options, so the form designer can change the time on the timer, remove the timer altogether, set the responses to be blocked after time runs out, and so much more. This can be great for tasks such as logic questions during an EGRA test. These are just 2 examples of field plugins, but there are lots of others available that you can use. You can even design your own field plugins that work however you need them to. There is a lot more you can do with form design, but that should give you a good general understanding. Next, let's go over how you actually collect data. Near the end of this webinar, we will also go over different ways to implement data collection. The main way to collect data is using the mobile SurveyCTO Collect app. This is an app you can download either from the Play Store for Android or App Store for iOS. With the Collect app, you can fill blank forms, then submit them when complete. If the enumerators are working in regions with poor internet, you can even collect data while offline and then submit completed form instances later. Let's see how to download and complete a form. This is a quick overview, but you can see more detailed steps in our Quick Start guide, which I will share near the end of this webinar. I have already signed into the server, so let's download the form we deployed earlier. Go to Get Blank Form. So go to Get Blank Form, select the form we want to download, tap Get Selected. The blank form is now downloaded. We can then go back, tap Fill Blank Form, and then complete the form instance. Once we have completed the form instance, open Send Finalized Form, and we can submit the form instance. The data is now on the server, and it took less than a minute. Of course, I don't have to immediately submit the form instance as soon as it is completed. I can complete a series of form instances, then submit them all at once when I am ready. Even set up automatic submissions, which we'll discuss a bit later. The other way to collect data is using web forms, which is completing a form instance from a web browser. This is what I have been using to show off those forms from earlier, so you should already have a good idea of what they are like. Unlike the Collect app, web forms need to be online to work, but no app needs to be installed. So this is great for directly sharing forms with respondents. You can turn on anonymous access for a form so that anyone with the form's URL can access it. You can also provide translations for forms and the web form interface. This field is in English, but in the form definition, I have also added a French translation for the first field. Plus, the server comes with a French translation for the web form interface. If I change the language to French, page is translated. The field label is translated because I provided that, and the interface is translated because the French translation is available on the server automatically. The options menu up here is translated, as is the Save Form button, as well as anything else that can be translated. If a form interface translation is not available in your needed language, you can add your own. Also, if you'd like, you can send us your translation, and we may publish and share it with other SurveyCTO users. Web forms are also available on mobile. This is the web form interface on mobile. Just like in web forms on desktop, you can go back and forth, enter data, change the form language, and submit it at the end. SurveyCTO Collect has lots of settings you can customize. For example, you can set it up so that finalized form instances are submitted as soon as the device is online, set it up automatically download the forms the enumerator needs to complete, disable access to certain menu items, and much, much more. With our quick setup feature, you can set up your server so that as soon as the user signs into Collect, the needed settings are automatically applied. To learn more, check out our documentation and support center. Someone's asking about Swahili translations. As far as I know, we don't have Swahili translations built into the server. We might have them in another place, which I will check at the end of this presentation. But if there is no Swahili translation, you can absolutely provide your own, which I'll be happy to go into detail at the end. We'll have plenty of time at the end of this slideshow. In addition to collecting data, SurveyCTO can help you monitor your data. Let's go over a few ways you can do this. We will not go into detail here as much as we did before, but you should have a good idea of the features available. The main way to review data is with the Data Explorer. In the Data Explorer, you can create graphs and charts based on your data and even view the details of individual submissions. Let's go over automated quality checks. Remember earlier when we created a constraint based on a respondent's age, so that cannot be greater than 125? Even though it is possible that someone could be close to 125 years old, it is very unlikely. You can create automated quality checks that check for possible issues. Let's create a quality check that checks if any respondents are over 95 years old, which is possible, but may also be that the enumerator made a mistake when entering the data. Here is the form we submitted data for earlier. Let's create an automated quality check. I'll click Checks, then Create Quality Check. Let's check if the value is too high, then click Next. I will select the field Age, then click Next. Finally, let's have this quality check if the field value is over 95, since ages over 95 are possible but unlikely. Click Save. And we're all set. The quality check has been created. There are two ways to get the results of a quality check. The first is to simply click the Run Now button right here. I can then download the quality report and see that there's one submission where the age is 100, which may be a mistake by the enumerator. The other method is to have the report run every night. Click Options, and we can set the checks to be run every night. We can even set it up so the report is emailed to data reviewers as soon as it is ready. We can even create quality checks based on statistics related to the data that has already been collected. This form has a field that asks the number of crops grown on the respondent's farm. Let's say out of all the submissions, the middle 50% of them, known as the interquartile range, report that between 10 and 30 crops are grown. If a submission states there were 100 crops grown on one of the farms, that is well outside of the interquartile range of 10 to 30. However, we had no way of knowing that 100 crops could be an error. We could not know the average until we actually started gathering data. With the automated quality checks, SurveyCTO is able to automatically check the collected data for any outliers so we know if those submissions need to be checked. I'll just click Checks, Create Quality Check, and right here we have Value is an outlier. Automatically check if anything is well outside of the interquartile range. Enumerators are only human, so it is only natural for them to make mistakes. In SurveyCTO, you can set up a review and corrections workflow where data quality checkers manually review a random selection or flagged selection of submissions. You will set which percentage of submissions will be held for review, anywhere from 1% to all of them at 100%, or manually choose which submissions should be reviewed, such as submissions flagged by automated quality checks. Before the submissions held for review are added to the main data, a data reviewer needs to go through them in the Data Explorer and either approve or reject them. They can even correct submissions if they find any mistakes, and a record of all changes made will be kept in case you need to check back later. In the screenshot here, the enumerator entered a value of 10, but the data reviewer is correcting it to 11. There are also ways to use the form design to monitor form data. You can use audio audits to record part or all of the interview, so data quality checkers can listen in and make sure enumerators asked and filled out fields correctly. You can add a geopoint field that records the location of the collection device, so you can make sure enumerators were in the correct location. You can have enumerators take photos of what they see, such as photos of crop fields or household members, and then make sure what the images show lines up with what the enumerators have recorded. You can set up SurveyCTO to record sensor data, such as if the data was collected in a dark or light area, whether the enumerator was moving around when collecting the data, and so much more. Check out the documentation to learn more about these other methods of monitoring and form design. Someone's asking if, for quality checks, can I check if an enumerator has spent more/less time than usual on a survey? Yes, you can absolutely do that. The form definition will automatically keep track of how much time was spent on the survey. You can also set up checks to see how much time was spent on sections of the field, and even easily set it up to see how much time was spent on each individual field. If you'd like more detail on how that works, I will show you at the end, so be sure to ask at the end if you would like more details. Once your data has been reviewed, it is ready to be exported for analysis. We will quickly go over a few methods of exporting your data. There are three main ways to export your data: directly from the server console using SurveyCTO Desktop or the REST API. If you are a beginner to SurveyCTO, we recommend using the server console since it is the easiest method. Generally speaking, we recommend using SurveyCTO Desktop since it is the easiest way to also export form attachments with your data, such as images and video taken while completing the form. If you are familiar with scripting languages such as Python or R, you can also download your data and attachments using the REST API. When you download your data using the server console or SurveyCTO Desktop, you can export it either to CSV, Excel, or for SPSS users, SAV format. Export in the format that works best for you. If you are a Stata user, you can also export a template that can be used with the CSV data for analysis once your data is exported to your begin analysis. That is an overview of the features of SurveyCTO. We don't have time to cover everything in detail, so be sure to check out our online resources, which we will be sharing at the end of this webinar. Next, let's briefly talk about the methods you can use to collect your data. One of the most popular ways to collect data is in a face-to-face interview. This is normally done using the Collect app on a mobile device. This can help collect the most accurate information in the least exhausting way for both the enumerator and the respondent. It also works offline, so it is great for areas that do not have reliable internet connections. Another method is to use computer-assisted telephone interviewing, or CATI for short. Enumerators call respondents in order to complete the form. The form can be completed either using the mobile app or using web forms. Form data publishing will also be used to keep track of respondent information, such as the calls made, the best phone number to call, and more. Because of security restrictions with Android and iOS, you cannot record calls using audio audits, but we provide resources for third-party tools you can use for call recording, such as Twilio. You can integrate Twilio and other tools into your form using field plugins, which you can find in our field plugin catalog. The final method we will discuss is self-enumeration. With self-enumeration, you send a link to the form and the respondent will complete it using web forms. Make sure you turn on anonymous access so respondents can access forms without needing to log in. You can also send unique links to respondents to help track their answers. Usually, links sent to the users are anonymous, but you can also send unique links that will identify the form instance before it is even opened. The submitted form instance will store the unique part of the link, so you can use that to see which respondents have completed the form so far and who still needs to complete it. Unique links can also be used to load data about the respondent. This can be helpful for longitudinal studies where you ask questions like, 9 months ago, you mentioned you were planting 10 hectares of carrots. How many kilograms of carrots have you harvested? It is with unique links that we were able to know how many hectares of carrots were being planted. Now that you understand what SurveyCTO is capable of, it's time to try it for yourself. On the next slide, I will provide you with a list of links you can use to learn more about SurveyCTO. If you have not done so already, create a new trial server and try out SurveyCTO. Check out our Quick Start Guide, which will walk you through how to create your first form, deploy it, fill it out, and download its data. You can also look through our documentation, support center, and other resources to learn more about what SurveyCTO can do. And of course, all trial and paid users can reach out to SurveyCTO support anytime they have a question.